Okay. It's Thursday. Love a good Thursday, because that means Inside Star Citizen. And I'm a little bit late on this one because we just got finished with our podcast with Anna. Go check that out when it comes out on Monday. But I'm excited to see what they've got in this sprint report. So guys, as always, I'm going to give you some context, some background, and some stupid commentary if you are willing to listen. And let's see what they've got for us this week in Star Citizen development.
Hey y'all, Space Dad here. Processing your feedback while in the middle of development is a monumental task. It's no...
Can we get that? Can that be official, Jared? Can we get that on at least as a Twitter name, Space Dad? Come on now.
Secret that the Star Citizen community has no shortage of opinions. And your tireless efforts in testing the persistent universe at all levels, from Evocati to PTU to even our live alpha environment, requires multiple initiatives to ensure that valuable feedback is properly received. Whether that's the developers themselves spending their time in Spectrum, Reddit, Twitch, and YouTube, to our growing community team and the likes of Ulf, Jake, Tamara, Christian, and more. Whew.
Double
As part
Christians.
of our continuing efforts to shine our proverbial spotlight on those folks who don't often get seen or heard from in traditional game dev spaces, we're changing up our origin story format this week to take a look at an entire team who outside of Evocati, folks may not even know exists, whose efforts, much like those that we've just mentioned, is dedicated to collecting, processing, interpreting, and especially testing that feedback before passing it along to our developers for any potential action.
So these are the people who get ground down by CIG, who get literally stomped into the ground by the worst. Oh, gosh.
So allow us to formally introduce you to the player experience team.
Or
in player experience, we're basically one of the many voices of the players.
The reason why...
Okay, so they translate our opinions. Oh, that must be fun.
A player experience team matters
the most, because not compared to other teams.
Player experience actually takes the feedback from the community, actually understands the bugs that the live environment is facing.
And we'll use those to make the game better.
So they do get ground down, just by us.
A day in the life of player experience team is
all over the place, actually.
Sorry, I have to laugh.
We almost don't know exactly what we're going to be doing that day.
We're kind of like the late crew here.
We start our day at 2 p.m.
To be able to play alongside players when these builds go out.
Beyond there, our day can exist from reviewing features that are upcoming.
We go to the issue council, we check to see what bugs have been reported in the latest builds.
One of our main objectives is taking those issues through the issue council and seeing if we can produce it in game.
Sometimes we get what are called QATRs, QA test requests from devs.
We report on those bugs, we tell developers here's what our findings were and how we...
This looks like my normal play session. Look at Temba over there.
Called QATRs, QA test requests from devs.
We just report on those bugs, we tell developers here's what our findings were and how we got to the bugs, and here's what didn't work and what did work, and try all types of weird and interesting ways of breaking the game.
It'd be like that.
We're the gap between the player.
Working alongside the community team to make sure that your feedback gets heard.
There's traditional QA and we have the live QA from the player experience team. Traditional QA takes care of upstream features as they're getting developed, while player experience actually
attack things from a player experience point of view, going through the motions that a player would go through to try to target the issues in a way that dev QA probably wouldn't be able to reproduce.
Okay. So that's a super straightforward explanation, and honestly, I don't know much about game development, so I don't know how companies are normally formatted, but it blows my mind that, and they said this last week, I think, in Star Citizen Live, they have the ability to make a feature, do R&D on it, hear what people think of that R&D, put it into the game, hear what people think of that in the game, have a special team that's made just to interpret that kind of stuff and translate it, and then the ability to go back and work on it and keep building it all while the game is still being built. They don't have to do it after the game's been finished. It's insane the amount of just granular control they have over the actual quality of this game. I mean, it's a double-edged sword. It slows down production, but geez, like, if you are a believer in this system, these kinds of things just seem really huge.
Us take a look in the specializations of the game. Like I go into specialization of medical gameplay, so I could see the ins and outs.
I focus a lot of my time on mining and trading issues. Other members of the team
love to dogfight. Some people love to do FPS combat or missions or bounty hunt. It's all over the place.
So we have a great spread, and we kind of get to have fun doing what we are excited to do.
That's Pyro.
I think the main
Love me some Pyro footage.
thing that I would want backers to know about our job and what our team does is that, we're listening to your feedback.
Our team itself is actually quite full of backers.
It kind of helps me put myself in their shoes rather than just look at the data and make a decision based off that data and not necessarily gameplay.
A joke made on the team a lot is that it's easier to learn QA than it is to learn Star Citizen. So, I already had my pet peeve bugs I wanted fixed. I already knew how the issue council worked.
I think it's important players do know that we see the issues, we see the issue council. We have some automated systems, and sometimes your issue council might say not a bug, but we are tracking it and we are aware of it. We go back manually and open them up when we see that happen, and we do want to address it and get it into the hands of the developers.
No, I'm not the reason your ship got nerfed.
Might be actually responsible for that a little bit. Don't put that in there, please. I know the Ares Ion has been brought up before.
Whenever we're looking to make changes to ships,
it's a very much involved process with a lot of decision makers.
We translate the concerns that players have and bring those into the developer's eyes.
So in essence, we're just the messengers.
It wasn't me.
I mean, it's just, people do say that they don't think that the company listens to the complaints. And I do think that a lot of times they'll take certain complaints and put them off to the side for a while because they can't handle them at the time. But it's pretty clear that they have people who are working on this kind of stuff and who are probably suffering through it a lot more than we are.
If there's one thing I want everyone to know, is we're all very much passionate about how this project is run, because we absolutely believe and love the project.
Being able to interact with a very dedicated community definitely allows us to gain a lot of insight into what the game should be and what the community envisioned the game to be.
In the end, they're the ones who are really supporting the game, and they're the ones who are playing the game, and we're making a game for people to play it and have fun. And I think that's the most important part of it.
As long as Chris says it's
People
okay.
are at the heart of the Star Citizen experience, both from you outside and those within. And in the case of the player experience team, often the same folks transitioning from one to the other. And up next, it's time for another sprint report, so let's get to it.
Thank you, Space Dad.
Let's start things off with these new docking areas being created for our high-tech space stations like August Dunlow found in orbit above the planet Crusader.
Ooh,
now, while docking...
a new space station archetype? I don't think they've talked about that before. I didn't realize they were going to do space station in the different architecture styles.
Came online a little while ago, several space stations and their respective archetypes still needed this work to enable docking at all the stations of the Stanton system.
So it's going to be called August Dunlow and not Port Olisar?
Next up, let's check in with the Drake Corsair and these gray box images of the mess hall interior, which looks to take some of its cues from what you may already be familiar with from the Drake Caterpillar.
Same lunch table.
There's also the cockpit where pilots spend most of their time.
Same chairs.
And an up-close look at the dashboard.
Same person.
And finally a look at perspective pilot visibility.
Oh god, same bad visibility.
We've also got these looks at the Drake Vulture, which is currently rounding out final art phase with some perspective liveries. Let's go ahead and do one of those social media quizzes in the comments. Which one is your favorite? 1, 2, 3, or 4?
I like 2 and 3. And
from brand new ships to those that have seen better days, let's take another look at the continuing development of our upcoming Reclaimer derelict.
We saw videos of these kinds of settlements. This is why I keep trying to say this is where we are is different from, people keep saying it's the same kind of thing as before. We are in a different place. If we were hearing about these derelict settlements back in 2019, first of all, we wouldn't have heard about them again since that January episode. Second, they wouldn't be in white box by now. They'd be concept art and they'd be sitting in our archives. This is so much better. This Montreal team is just...
Now, as part of the work our Montreal team is doing, most derelicts will fall into one of three categories: old, new, and inhabited. And as part of those inhabited, you can see here preliminary work on housing modules to be found both outside and within the wreckage itself. Tech is also being developed to allow the overall object container that contains the derelict within to pick up biome information from wherever it's dynamically spawned. That means if it's spawned in snow, it gets snow covering, or in this case, ivy and a variety of plant growth.
Tools.
The team is also building up a new library of derelict shaders for various states of decomposition. And when all this is brought together, it'll mean a greater variety of points of interest for you to discover and new mission areas spawned once you accept the job.
The heck is a reclaimer doing out on Microtech anyways? Come on. What are you going to reclaim out there?
All dynamically placed and dressed as needed. And before we move on, a short video look at the interior habitable spaces currently being fleshed out.
This is oh, it's in game. I'm so happy this is actually happening in game. At least this close to when they revealed it is kind of the focus there.
And then lastly, let's take a look at current VFX progress on the handheld Salvage beam we discussed on last week's Star Citizen Live with Mike Snowden. Now, while it's important to state that this effect you're seeing here is not final, repeat, not final, and this is a showcase only of the VFX involved, I hope we can all agree this is still really cool as heck.
This is still really cool as heck. I'm sorry, I know there are going to be people who are not happy about this, but like, we've been waiting for this for like 4 years. And it might not be everything that everyone wants, but as a first iteration, this isn't all a salvage. This is just scraping off the hull. I'm just happy to see a functional, actual representation in the game engine. Also, I think that's the cutting tool on their back, the dedicated cutting tool, which we have not really seen in game before either. So it's good to see that is making progress. Maybe they'll show us it in use.
I hope we can all agree this is still really cool as heck. I mean, just look at this thing. The way the particles are being atomized and sucked up off the hull of the ship.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
I'm going to tell you, I just kind of sat and watched this on loop for about 5 minutes straight and was thoroughly mesmerized.
I mean, I just want to experiment with it. I just want to go and find every ship I can find and just melt hull and see what it looks like underneath. Are you kidding me?
In fact, Amanda, let's change up the music and just let this play out for a bit. Really get our zen on. I said get our zen on. You're messing with me. There we go.
Is this a slow zoom?
Of course, we'll learn more about Salvage, ship-based and handheld, next quarter ahead of its much-anticipated introduction to the persistent universe.
Can we all stop saying the same freaking jokes now that Salvage is going to get delayed again? If it gets delayed again, it's going to be the next patch. It's coming this year. It's in the game. Well, engine.
So what did we learn this week? Well, we learned that it takes quite a bit to keep up with the massive amount of feedback the players provide. And then it's all hands on deck with the developers.
Thank you, Space Dad, for another great episode. Honestly, I'm just so happy to see Salvage. I know that they were probably wondering if they should show us it once this quarter, just as a teaser, or if they should just wait until next quarter to show us. I'm really glad they show us at least one version of it working in some way. Super big deal. That is a very big deal. It's not going to change the game by any means, and it's not going to make everybody suddenly have a bunch of fun, but it's going to be another way for people to spend all of, if not a lot of their time making money and doing something different than mining or combat or bounty hunting or exploring or low flying or something like that. This is another avenue to play the game, and we need more of those. It's a good year for that. So I think that was a pretty solid episode of Inside Star Citizen. Cool sprint report we got to hear about. Obviously, all things that we've already known have been happening. These were all just updates on things that we already knew. Actually, let me double check. I think. No, we did not know about these. So that's actually pretty cool. I didn't realize we were going to get different archetypes and space stations. But besides that, these were some amazing updates on some stuff that is coming later this year. The derelict settlements are going to be huge. It's a new gameplay space. The Drake Vulture is going to be great for first version of vehicular salvage. Obviously, FPS salvage is a great thing as well. And new space stations are always cool. Corsair is great. But honestly, the derelict locations are going to be big. And the salvage gameplay is going to be big. VFX. And I'm really excited. I'm glad that they showed us that this episode. So guys, there's been another Inside Star Citizen review with your boy, the Tomato. God, why did I say that? I'll see you guys next week.